Hi, I'm Rev Brown and you're watching Crowdfunding Comics. Have a great day.
Everybody, I'm Billy Tucci, since I got the big mouth, so I'll talk. Welcome to our second ever Crowdfunding Comics panel. We had one in San Diego Comic-Con, and it was huge. They gave us 2 big hall rooms, so a couple hundred people in there. It was fantastic. And this is number 2, but I am joined by my illustrious host right here, Mr. Nile Scala.
Hello, everyone.
Nile's first panel.
My first panel.
First panel ever, and of course we have the immortal Mr. Murad Michaels. Is it Murad? Murad. It sounds Russian.
It is Russian.
It is. Murad.
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 All right. Yeah. And of course Mr. Peter Simeti.
Murad for sure.
Author of comics. So if you guys mind, if you could let everybody know a little bit about yourself, and we'll start with you and we'll go down the line like that. All right.
I'm the publisher and founder of Alternate Comics. We've been around since 2006. And lately, the past 2-3 years, we've been bringing back newsprint, single-issue newsprint comics, $1.50, $1.89 a piece. We're also expanding into newsstands. Barnes & Noble Books A Million just got a deal with Sheets, which is in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, a couple other states. And we're talking to 7-Eleven right now, and maybe, fingers crossed, we'll get comics into there too. But we're all about getting comics affordable, making comics fun, escapist, and just telling really good stories, getting them in the hands of many people as possible.
All right.
Peter, nice job. Are you bringing the alternative spinner racks to 7-Eleven? Beautiful.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Billy Tucci. I self-published for about 10 years. Best known for my comic book She. We published my Crusade Comics line. We published over 200 books in that time span, and probably 100 issues of She. Since then I worked for Marvel DC. I got a little burnt out doing the same character for 10 years. But I bring her back next month through IndieGoGo with She, Return of the Warrior. And I'm just very happy to be here. I partnered up with Nile Scala. We had a germ of an idea about 4 months ago or so. We were at a coffee shop, we were at a Starbucks. And he said he wants to start reviewing campaigns, right? And I'm like, oh my God, we should have a whole show.
I was like, I'm just gonna, because I had other shows online, building up a social presence, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna do this on Monday nights. And he was like, that's great. And then he just went, we'll do this, and we'll do that, and we'll do this. And I'm sitting there like, yeah. And he's like, oh, but of course, like, if you want me to.
Yeah, if you want me to be a part of it. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. So, and then Marat?
My name is Marat Michaels. I'm old, so I started back in '92 with Image Comics. I was their first rookie. Worked at Marvel DC in the last 5 or 6 years. I have a line of comics through Counterpoint Comics, and it's a bunch of parody comics. I do a book called Do You Pooh, which is a parody of Winnie the Pooh and Deadpool. A book called Hardly Thin, which is parodies Harley Quinn, and I have a couple of, 7 now. We're on our 7th Kickstarter right now. Different books on Kickstarter, Naughty and Nice, Savage Eve, and our new one, Pray for Sinner, and that's
and it's
why,
live
that's
now, right? You have a live campaign now.
We have a live campaign now. It's Pray for the Sinner. That's P-R-E-Y. It's doing fantastic. So if anybody here has pledged, thank you. If you haven't, you're missing out. So that's about it. Yeah. And then I hang out with these guys sometimes, and they talk me into this. So.
He doesn't want to do it. He barely talks.
I hate everybody. So.
Yeah.
But he's a great asset to the basketball team.
Yes, he is.
I'm 6'2" with no athletic ability.
Oh, really? So what I got excited about with the whole thing with Nile is that of this being a self-publisher back in 1994 when I started, it was really hard. And it was a lot of publishers came and went, but some of them, like me, I caught lightning in a bottle and we just took off. And it was a fantastic run. And then the independents really around 1999, 2000, when the industry did a massive crash, they all pretty much disappeared. And now there's this renaissance of self-publishing, and that anybody here in this room can be the next Stan Lee. They could be the next Will Eisner, and the next Image guys, the next Robert Kirkman. So that's why we have our show. We do it a couple of times a week. Peter and Marat were both one of our first guests, and thank you for coming on. It's a lot of fun. It's called Crowdfunding Comics. on YouTube. We also have a website that we're building now called crowdfundingcomics.com. And I just love this whole renaissance of just creator-owned and people like following their dreams. I've met so many people the past 25 years who say, I want to do that. And I'm like, well, like, you got to do this, you got to do that. And it's really, it's a lot of work, which it is. It's a lot of work. But it's never been easier to be able to publish your own comic book. And if anyone wants to make their own books, please, we're here to help you. These guys have had really incredible success with crowdfunding comics, especially. Niall's going to be jumping into it next year.
First quarter 2020.
Yep, with his book. And someone asked me why, if I may just jump, why crowdfunding comics? And I had a discussion with somebody at South Carolina Comic-Con who's a retailer. And he was like, well, why are you're doing She this year, and you're doing the new Zombie Sama book. Why are you doing it through Kickstarter instead of through the comic shops? Because, that's hurting us. And I said, well, I did do Zombie Sama, and thank you, Bill, for the book. And I did do Zombie Sama we did it 2004, I think. And we did do it through comic shops, and I think we sold 800 copies. So a comic book that cost me about $8,000 to make, I made $800 from the distributor from it. So, but then we redid Zombie Sama, and we redid it completely. The same artist, my partner John Broly and John redrew, and it's a 72-page book. And through we did a Kickstarter campaign first for a month. Then we followed up with a 2-week IndieGoGo campaign, and of that campaign, we raised $75,000. Wow! So, and that's nothing compared to and I pushed the heck out of it. And I called in a lot of favors, a lot of friends. But right now you have like Brian Pulido has his campaign with Lady Death. If anyone's fans of Lady Death, he's like 48 hours in and he's over $200,000. Yeah. So not everyone's going to be Brian Pulido. But the cool thing is, right, if you have a germ of an idea and you want to put out a 32-page comic or a 24-page comic or a 22-page comic, if you raise $400 or $500, enough to get it printed, you will be a comic book publisher. You can have Ice Cream Girl, the Sweet Twins. No, you could do that. And these guys that are making a living doing it, are making a living doing it. So if anyone, I guess, Niall, you have some questions I think you want to ask us, right? Or propose it out there.
Yeah, so
But that's what I'm saying. It's a great way to follow your dreams. And I'm a huge proponent of it. What's up, man? So. Sorry.
No, please. Let's go. All right, so, obviously you guys are now in the crowdfunding arena, being very successful. I mean, what made you decide to even enter this? And I'll start with Peter.
In terms of entering crowdfunding or comics?
Entering crowdfunding.
Mostly because the comic industry, as far as distribution goes, is extremely limited. You really can't make a living.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, okay, the comic industry is hurting because crowdfunding is taking off. That's not what's happening. The crowdfunding is taking off because the comic industry is hurting. It's forcing people into a road, into a non-traditional road that they didn't necessarily know, should I go down this path or not? Because there's a lot of risk to it. We're in a time right now where we're constantly being told people don't really want comics. People aren't buying comics. Kids don't like comics. They don't want to read comics. Yet meanwhile, there's so many crowdfunders constantly that go on where there's a huge audience for them. And if creators like Billy or myself or anyone else that does a crowdfunder, if there's retailers that say, well, it's hurting us, well, I'd say if you as a creator can't make a living off of making comics, nothing will stop you sooner from making comics than that. Right. And therefore, then who does that hurt? If the retailers don't have comics to sell because people can't make money from it, what are the retailers going to do? It's just going to be selling the same old things over and over again, collectibles, until there's no generation of new creators, there's no generation of new readers, and within 20, 30 years, there's no comics. Mm-hmm. So this is, if anything, this is a time for retailers to look at crowdfunding and go, hey, this is a new way to get comics. These things are proof of concept. These are comics that people are interested, the creators are motivated, and they're bringing in people to get excited about comics again. And if I'm a retailer, I reach out to these people and I say, hey, I want to get this comic in my store. I want to set up a crowdfunding comic section in my store and say, can you give me a discount? This way we can get comics into stores and circumvent this whole crazy distribution system that's going on in comics right now that's killing the industry.
Right.
100%, that is what is killing comics right now, is the distribution practices going on.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to so many retailers, and when we did publish the books, and even like, let's say with that Zombie Sama book, and like, well, you're Crusade Comics, you're in C. But the way, back in the day, say 25 years ago, it was ABC, and you get your previews catalog that all the comic shops get, all the retailers would get a catalog, and it would be alphabetized. When the distribution wars started, then all of a sudden it became Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, and maybe one or two other, IDW or something like that, and then all the rest. So as my books with Crusade Comics used to be on page, say, 25 in the catalog, now we're on page 325. And by the time the retailers get to the independents, they don't have any money left.
Yeah, the premium publishers get a lot of real estate with that catalog. You can see a preview, you can see a nice big cover, you can see all kinds of stuff. They're treated very differently. And then everything else gets a thumbnail. And it's a, for those of you guys, do you know the previews catalog?
Yeah.
Big massive phone book, you could kill someone with it, right?
Yeah.
$4 to $5 every month to pay for a catalog to order comics that maybe will come out in 2 months.
Yeah.
So that right there, it's the year 2019. It's going to be 2020. Why isn't this online? Why can't people just go to the site and say ship to store and just have a pull list online through previewsworld.com? This is something I brought up to my brand manager 5 years ago. 4 brand managers later, they're still talking about maybe we'll do it. So it's a backward system, and it's because of the fact that there's so much complacency. They don't need to do it. There's no other game in town. There's no competition. There's no one to say, hey, we're going to give you a run for your money. We're going to do some of the stuff that people want. It's just, okay, well, we're just going to take advantage of the situation at hand and keep doing what we've been doing. And to the detriment of all of us, the retailers, the publishers, the creators, and the readers, you guys in particular. You can't, how many people know a comic shop that has gone out of business? I think we all do.
Right? It
We all
sucks.
know
Your comic shop goes out of business. That's terrible, because it's a great community.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing now with the crowdfunded books. You do your Kickstarters, your IndieGoGo. You're going directly to the fans. You're talking to your friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you become friends with a lot of them. You know, like we all become, which is great. That, you know, I've met so many of my best friends bought the books.
Yeah.
And then you just, and I love this way that you're cutting out the middleman, say, or actually you're cutting out 2 middlemen. You're cutting out the retail, and nothing against retailers, of course, because I'd love to get the books after we do this. Now we can get the books in comic shops and solicit the new Zombie Sama book, and I want to give a guaranteed ship date. So the retailers will know that comic is going to be in your shop, like you said, may or may not come out in 2 months, 2-3 months, but you put a guaranteed ship date so the retailers will have the confidence that that book will be there because it's already done through the crowdfunding. And that's, I just love this whole thing that the fans know what they're going to get. When you're on your YouTube channel, you have your video for your crowdfunded book, and you're talking, you show them the art. You know, you're interacting with them, and like I said, our website, you know, our page, and everyone asks questions. We have a lot of fun on our crowdfunding comics panel.
Well, you're building that new community because, you know, as unfortunately as the comic shops are starting to die off and closing, you know, that camaraderie you have where you go in and you're sitting there on the counter and you're chatting is now almost becoming this virtual world. Where now you're directly with the creator that's creating the books that you love so much and that you're supporting, and now you're standing at his counter and you're talking and you're chatting and you're getting to interact. It's definitely a new dawn, I would say, in really the processes.
Yeah, it's also tough to say you want the new Deadpool book comes out, but they'll have 20 covers. But in order to get the Murad Michaels cover, you got to buy 500 books.
Yeah, depending.
You know what I mean? And then his cover might be 300, 200. I don't know how much they'll sell it for.
Yeah.
But then those retailers that have like the Captain Marvel books and stuff like that, you still go in. The book came out in January. There are still stacks up there
Because they have to order 300 to get one variant.
Yep, to get one variant, and that's putting the retailers out because they gotta pay that money.
Yeah. Also, the other thing too is I've noticed a lot of people. I talk to a lot of fans who are an hour and a half, 2 hours from a comic store.
Yep.
And so the way things are today, like my fiance, she will not even leave the house. She loves to shop online.
Yeah.
And the more fans I talk to, they just love the idea of their comic being delivered to their mailbox. They go to their mailbox, there it is. It's, you know, most guys pack the books well, you get a nice mint book in the mail, and it's, you know, the guys who have successful crowdfunding, like everybody on the stage has, they deliver the product and it's quality and it's exactly what you pay your money for. And you don't have to worry about looking at a stack of books that's been, I mean, I did a Deadpool variant cover a year ago, and I got 1,000 books from, you know, the printer. And I mean, they are just ragged. You have to go through book after book after book and then just beat up because they don't care.
Yeah.
Because to them, it's just paper. It has no value. When we ship books, we bag them, we board them, we make sure when you get your book, it's the book you paid for. So you might pay a little more, but you get a lot more. So, you know, and again, it's the convenience of it. You know, it's right at your door. You go outside, and I'm lucky. I live in an area. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. There's about 4 or 5 stores within 20 minutes away from me. But I have a buddy who lives in Alabama, and he's like, I literally have to drive to Mississippi. He's close to the state line to go to the comic book store. You know, and that's like, who wants to do that? You know, and if you do, you go once a month. And like you were saying, if they order 3 or 4 copies of your book, and that's a lot for a lot of retailers, that's gone by like Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even know by the time you get to the comic store, you don't even know that book existed. So how can you ask for it to be on your pull list? How can you ask for it, you know, for issue number 2 or 3? You don't know it exists. So this way the creator can go, hey, this book exists, and you go, I want it, I'm getting it, click, there it is. So
You bring up a really good point too about the convenience of it, because it's essentially crowdfunding is a pre-order process, which is basically what the whole comic industry is being built upon right now. But the biggest difference is the convenience. So usually, you know, you have to go to the comic shop, you have to drive to your comic shop, right? And then give them notification that you want to get this book and you want to pre-order it and all of that. Now, if you do what Diamond wants you to do, you actually write down on a handwritten form, you know, or you take out the chisel and stone that Diamond wants you to use and say, this is the comic I want, and I'm going to pre-order this. Now, just that alone, and that's if the process goes 100% smoothly, you're talking about maybe an hour round trip between everything. Whereas you go on a crowdfunder, you like the comic, you like the creator, you go boom, click, done. 5 minutes. So the whole thing, it revolves around, we all have so much going on. And there's comic.
if you're a Democrat, don't worry about, you know, the right-wing Republicans. You cater to your base. To me, my approach is the same way. Know the people that like your work, you know, and want to support you. People who hate like the image style and kind of the flashy thing, they're never going to buy my comics. You know, it doesn't matter how much better I've gotten as an artist in the last 25 plus years. They pigeonhole me, they don't like my work. I'm not going to churn them. I'm just looking at the people that like what I do, and those are the people that I'm trying to, you know, make sure that they're happy, they support me, and they get the product they expect from me. And again, you know, if all of a sudden Billy brought she back and she was, you know, big muscular dude, you know, it wouldn't work. You know, this baby wants a sexy she from him and a badass warrior. And I think that to me is the first and foremost thing. Once you get that going, it's, you know, it's just kind of that, it's connected dots.
So you identify your base. How do you actually reach that base then?
Well, I mean, social media is number one. You know, your Facebook, your and it, you know, your Instagram, your Twitter. You know, I mean, not that I believe in most of what he says, but Ethan Van Sciver with Cyberfrog, who did like over 500,000. You know, he just figured out what his base was. He got to his followers. He cultivated them for a long time, and once he was ready to launch, you know, he made sure that they were bombarded with, hey man, you guys got to support me because without you, this book doesn't happen. And that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
When we talk about Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general, is you make a connection with your fans and with the people that like your work or like your product, and they want to feel part of it. I mean, we're all like everybody else. I love going through the conventions and buying comics and, you know, buying posters and prints and all that kind of stuff. If I go up to a creator and the guy's cool, like I want the product no matter what. But if a guy was a dick to me at some point, like it's like, you know, I don't want to spend 20 guys because that guy's a dick. Excuse my French, Tony. But I mean, like, I will because I really like this piece. But you know, but if the guy's like super cool to me, I'm like happy to support him. I'm happy to give him my money because not only am I a fan of the work, I'm a fan of the person behind the work, guy or girl. So to me, that's the whole thing. Like, you make a connection with your fans. You know, I think it's something you have to do before you launch your crowdfund. You know, because it doesn't matter. Like, you look at Polito's and you're like, oh my God, he had like 100,000 in 20 minutes. I was at his launch party. But the most impressive part, it was not how much money he made, which is significant, but how few people it took to get to that.
Yeah.
It was less than 1,000 people to get to $100,000, which tells you, like, his fans, he has such a connection with them, and I'm sure, I think you'll have the same
I
kind of
hope so.
success with She, because, you know, I think the character has longevity and people love it, and you're a great guy. So, you know, it's, your fans want to support you. They want to make you, you know, be successful, because if you're successful, you put out more product, and if they enjoy your work, that's, you know.
So if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like if you're just starting out, crowdsourcing probably isn't the best way because you don't have that fan base.
Well, now, not like I said, not everyone's going to be like Ethan. Ethan's almost at 900,000. So, but Ethan also had 20 years of great art and award nominations and things like the biggest, you know, top 10 books, #1 books.
Right.
But then also he went through a thing where he was marginalized by a lot of people in the industry and stuff like that, whether because he voted for the president or whatever, you know, and he then stuck with his base, as he was saying, the people that support him, that feel the same way, and it was almost like a us against them mentality. But the book's great. It's a beautiful book. It's a fantastic book. I've seen it. But you could do what he did on a smaller level, you know, as to like your friends and family. Get your friends, get your family to help you out, because you might not have to raise. I think Ethan needed to raise like 15 grand for his comic. That was the base to get it printed, because he's going to work on it for a year. It's 80 pages of this story that he loves, and he's going to work on it every day. But this is all he needs to make it. Of course, you want to make more so you can make a living doing that, you know. And thankfully, you know, that he was able to explode, and it exploded. What you can do, though, is that if you belong to, say, any, like, Facebook groups, because Facebook is still really big with crowdfunding.
Yes, it is.
Really big. I can go on our YouTube channel and talk about that.
Yeah.
Or I'll talk, or now I do the OBS live stream on both, you know? And the Facebook people just respond to that because they do have still that connection that, you know, they're for your friends. You're up to 5,000 friends. But then there's great groups. There's, like, Facebook groups. You know, you can go into a Collector's Corner, which is a great group on Facebook. You could join these collectors groups or groups. Say you love Vampirella. You have a book that's similar to Vampirella, say. Go to a Vampirella group on Facebook. Join that group. Post pictures. Say, hey, you know, I have a character, and I know it's not vampire, but it's a vampire character. Or if you like, there's books on horror comics. Say you have a horror comic. Well, here's my horror comic. It's you know, slasher, you know, something like that. And then you can start putting those images on that. Sure. You put little pictures on it, put a panel on it, you know what I mean, or something like that, and just start getting the members of that group behind you. Because even if you just raise $1,000 in 30 days, that $1,000, that say that's all you need to get it printed, right? And it is hard to start. You know, Brian Polito's First Lady Death did not hit $300,000. You know, Ethan's a phenomenon what he did, because he is so engaged. Yeah, and he is so engaged socially. If you go on, he's on Comic Artist Pro Secrets. Go on his YouTube channel. He's very engaging. He's talking to the fans. He's interacting with them. He's got the super chats running and the people talking on the side, and he's interacting with them, and they all feel like they know him. They're friends with him. And when someone's nice to you and you interact with them, and you have good stuff, they're gonna want to support you.
Sure.
So even if it starts real small, so find out, like Peter, like, you know, where do we get the books printed? Maybe you could do like what Peter does. Peter does something that's incredible, that he does really affordable books. You know, because most comics are $5 now, $6. He's doing comics at $1.50. Because maybe he's not using the super slick paper. But not everybody wants that. Back in the greatest comics ever made were on newsprint. You know, and today's newsprint isn't like 1980s newsprint. It's so much better. You know, so maybe here's my book. It's 22 pages. It's my first comic. You go to your local printer, or you could email guys like Peter. You know. I don't want to say.
We've got a printing partnership program. You can piggyback onto our print runs and get 50-cent comics printed off. A minimum of 500.
Yeah. So that means you need, you know, say you want $1,000. You can go and you can get $1,000 to your friends and family. you can. What was that? 2,500, 50 cents at 500.
$250. Plus
250.
shipping is like
$250. So to make this book, say you spend a month on a 22-page comic, even if it's black and white, all you need to do is raise $250, $300. Get that, and then you can have it. Look, we've got a successful crowdfunded comic. Now we're going to take Slasher and make that a full color book. But for color, we're going to add the color, but we're still going to keep the paper, keep it affordable. I need now 2,000, say, and then but all those people that that pledged you the first time, even if it's 100, even if it's 50, they're going to come back and support the next one. And then that can only piggyback and grow more. And if you're dealing with someone with Alterna, you know what I mean? You get them, you get in their social circles, you come to our show, we'll get to know, we're all in, it's a great community. And it is business.
Yeah, now's the best time,
yeah.
any time to be an independent creator.
Yep.
And if I may interject, I mean, when you're going into your second crowdfunding project, I mean, you're not going in there like, I'm going to set my goal at 50,000 and I'm going to make all this money. Your first crowdfunding projects aren't about making money. It's about getting your product out there, building up your audience, and then hopefully as you get to your third, your fourth, your fifth, you're now able to hit stretch goals, which bring in more funds to make your product more better, more personal. And also, now you're entering that realm of, okay, I can start making a living on this, or help, supplemental income so that you can continue to do more and create more. So a lot of guys that go in that mentality, here's my first Kickstarter, I'm going in high, they fail. Statistically, they fail, and it's in the 90% range. And guys who go in, with a $1,500 to $3,000 goal, successfully, they end up going around 5,000 or 6,000. They've exceeded. They've got a product out there. They can now, attend shows because this product was able to be made. And that's another thing when you're doing these crowdfunding projects is, you also want to produce a little more than what you're putting out there based on your backers, because you want to get that product out there. So strategically, you want to be able to create the product to get out to your backers, but also have enough to print some extra so that you can now bring your product to smaller shows and events as well.
Now, Peter, if I may ask you, for 50 Cent Comics, how many pages is that?
32.
So for a 32-page comic, would they do it 16 pages or something? Would they do it smaller, or is it that set 32 pages?
Just divisions of 8.
Okay, division. Now, do they have various cover stocks? Could you spend another 10 cents more and get a different cover stock, or is it the same?
For us, it has to be gang run to get the discount.
What's your cover? So what's that?
It's like a 60-pound gloss.
So it's a nice.
And then
Okay.
It's literally like the comics that most of us pretty much read.
And you have them at your booth.
Yeah. Yep.
So what's your booth number?
It's 704 and 706.
So if you want to see like really affordable books to make that Peter has, and they're gorgeous.
Yeah. Modern color too.
Great.
It's not just the newsprint of yore with the 4-color process and the zip and tone. I love all that stuff, but you can do gradients, you can do all that stuff on there. It's not. Some publishers will tell you can't. Some publishers will tell you that. I know printers that have panels dedicated to saying that the newsprint's impossible and that we're lying about it. We've done over 30 books at this point for other people that those are real, and we've made over 100 issues at this point, and those are all real. And they've been selling, and they're out there. And they're getting in the hands of more and more people.
And that's full color?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Then how do you sell the books? You got to go through all this process, you got the books printed. Are you going to sell in the bookstore?
Oh yeah, then eventually, absolutely. You can go through now, once you have a bona fide book and you're a bona fide publisher, you can go through comic shops, you can go through Diamond Comic distributors. That's kind of a luxury. And hopefully, maybe it does take off, but you already have that built-in audience, and then you can ask your audience, say, hey, we have a comic now in the comic shops, it's in the April previews, April 2020 previews, please go get it. But like what Peter's doing now is that Peter is now getting into Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, we've been at Barnes & Noble for a while, Books A Million. We just got a deal with Sheets, and talking to a lot of stores. They're all interested in comics. Before Toys R Us went under, we were in Toys R Us for the holiday season of 2017, and we had about a 50 to 55% sell-through rate on those books. They were right by the register, and we gained hundreds of new readers because of that. People that they didn't have a comic shop nearby, they never heard of us before. They just saw the book, it looked good, It's cheap, and okay, let's give it a try. And that's what comics used to. That's what the whole industry was built on. Was getting books in front of people, reaching out to new customers and consumers, and new readers that discovered things for the first time. You know, we're not all born with the inherent knowledge of Batman or whatever. I know that right now it feels like comics have been around forever. Everyone knows about them already. So, you know, whoever wants to read them is reading them, and that's it. Well, there's someone every day discovering Beethoven for the first time, eating their first slice of pizza, you know, reading a Batman comic for the first time. These things they have to be introduced to people. We can't just sit back and be passive and say, well, there's comic shops. People know comics exist. Oh, they see the movie. They know these are comics. I've done so many signings at Barnes & Noble where people come up and they open the book and they go, oh, this is a comic book. They still make comics.
Yeah, and they're good comics. Well, that's why I love calling it the new golden age, because this is like the golden age of comics back in the 40s, say. You know what I mean? After Superman came out and all these publishers were popping up. So there were so many, I mean, you could find all these amazing titles. Some are really weird, you know what I mean? And so not all of them were Marvel and DC books or Timely or whatever it was back then. They could just buy, you know, like just a new publisher popped up. Like if you ever read the book, The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, you know, that sort of, that really captures that time, and it's a really fantastic book. But that's like what Peter's experience, like, oh, that's cool, it's a comic. Well, it's not Batman, but so what? I haven't read, you know, because most people haven't read Batman. Right. Yeah. So they're like, well, I want a comic, and they'll go and they'll pick it up, and if you want to get into that, like I said, he's an amazing publisher, and someone to talk to, you know, and maybe partner up with if you're bringing in new titles. You bring in new titles and
all the time.
See?
All the time. Yeah. Our submissions are always open. I get about 100 to 150 a month, and it's stiff competition. I maybe accept 3 or 4 out of those 100 to 150 a month, but you know, it doesn't mean that just because you receive a rejection from me or anyone else that's, you know, the end of the road. And it doesn't even mean that it's not good enough or it won't do well. I tell people all the time that my biggest thing is I just don't think it'd be a good fit for us. And you know, it's hard to explain what that is because I kind of only know what that is. But if anything, I'd love for that to churn a fire in someone, and they go, I'm gonna do great on this. I'm gonna show them that you missed out. I have yet to have that happen, and I want that to happen. I want someone to say, hey, look, you missed out. We sold, you know, 20, 30,000 copies of this, and you said, you know, it wasn't gonna be a good fit for you. But it's the kind of thing where you just keep going at it, and the door's always open at Alterna. It's never, you know, just one submission didn't work out. It doesn't mean anything. You got another story, I want to see it. You know, come back 2 years from now if you revise that submission and it's got great lettering, great colors, great art. You change the writing a little bit, whatever it is. You know, send it in again. Let's give it another look. I know a lot of publishers, they just accept submissions at a certain point in time. You know, it's kind of like you get a rejection and that's kind of it. The door's closed, you made a bad first impression and that's it. But I don't view it that way. And there's a lot of people too where some publishers will they don't want to see a zombie book anymore. They say zombies are played out. Well, if it's a good book, Zombie Sama, that's a good book. You know, you can do zombie stuff in a million different ways, you know? And it's inspiring though, at this point in time to see that all these kinds of stories can really connect with people. You know, think about, if I were to say to the average person, or to you guys, if I were to say, hey, do you like movies? You know, you go, what kind of movies? If I were to say, do you like comic books? Most people would say, I don't really like superheroes. Or they say, I like superheroes. It's become so synonymous with superheroes, but comics can be anything. And right now we're in a time where comics are anything. And they are more for everyone now than ever before. And the fact that, you know, we've got 2 very big companies in comics that are the tent poles of the industry, but they're not really. It's kind of the illusion that they are. You know, if comics as an industry could understand, comics are so widespread. There's so many different readers. There's so many different stories. Start having different genres in your stores, organizing your stores by genre to get new customers in there. I go into a shop. I've been reading comics my whole life, And Billy, I'm sure you're the same way, and you guys too.
That's why we got into it. We're all comic. Like, we're all here because we're comic fans. And that could be a detriment, though. Right. You know, because you're like, oh, because you love this so much. You love the medium so much.
And if you go into a store, how intimidating is it, though, sometimes, if you're just like, wow, there's so many things, I don't know where to start. You know, but if things were listed in genre, like how many of you guys have Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or anything like that? We become a society that's very used to sorting by genre. Comics needs to get on board with that and realize it's not just superheroes and everyone else. You can't just say indies and here's everyone else and here's Marvel and DC. You have to start sorting by genre, and that's how you get new people in there. You go, oh, I like horror. I see these are the horror books. Let me check it out. I like sci-fi. I'll look at the sci-fi books. And this is all this kind of stuff that goes on. And crowdfunding breaks that down for you. It's not a cold process anymore. There's not this arm's length approach where, you know, the creator makes a book, goes through a publisher, goes to the retailer, you know, and then it goes to you. It's, hey, I like this guy, I want to follow what they're doing, and they interacted back with me. And it's all about that, because if you get creators who are not interactive, and they don't want to engage, and they're like, look, I just want to make a comic, and, you know, it's someone else's job to do all this stuff. Crowdfunding might not be for that, because it is a lot of that. You have to have the right mindset for it, like anything else. And you have to realize it's going to be a lot of work in a different way. You know, every single one of us is a small business.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to approach it that way.
Well, like in my case, I'm sure, you know, when the shipping department's working, the writing department's not working. And when the art department's working, you know, the shipping department isn't working, right? But it's fun though. It's still your business.
Oh yeah.
And again, you know, if the books take a little, like some people are like, oh, I'm waiting 5-6 months for this book. Well, when we say we're submitting for previews right now, sending in our solicitation, that's for books coming out, what, in February?
When you send the solicit, it's like a 6 month.
Yeah, so you have that 6 month, and then it's in the catalog for a month, and then by the time you get the orders, you get another 2 months to get it. So if you do it in a good timely thing, it is pretty much the same as if someone first sees the previews catalog, you know.
And the thing that's great about crowdfunding too is you're able to kind of set up this pop-up store of your brand and your book. So it's not just your book you're selling, but you can sell all kinds of stuff associated with it. You can get original art, you can get commissions done, all this kind of stuff that you can't do in a traditional way.
Yeah.
You know, and then the craziest part is you said, like, there's 1,000 people that jumped on board for Brian's Kickstarter, right? Okay. So if he just had those 1,000 people just get the book through distribution, he'd earn next to nothing.
Yeah.
He would have lost money, for sure.
Yeah.
For a 48-page full-color comic.
Yeah.
Because even if the books say at that price, at 48 pages now, maybe say it's $5. I think traditionally, the retailer takes 40%, the distributor takes 20%, and then you get 40%. But out of your 40%, then all your costs.
And that's if you don't have a publisher on board.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Even at Alternate, it's an 80-20 split. The creators get 80% of the profit, we get 20%. And they have 100% of the rights for everything else. I don't want to touch movie rights if they get a film going, whatever. Stickers, shirts, whatever they want to do. If they get toys going on, it's 100% theirs. People go, how do you make money then if it turns into a movie? I go, I'm a publisher, I print more books.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. So this whole thing where it's become a system that you look at it and go, well, you know, this isn't gonna help the industry and crowdfunding, and it's just gonna kind of push people in a different way. It doesn't need to do that. Yeah. It doesn't need to at all. And if anything, to me, every time I see a really successful one, you know, like again, what everybody's been doing up here, it just inspires me. It says, you know, hey, look, the comic market is alive and thriving. Yeah. There's people that care. There's people that care so much that they don't just want to buy the book. They want to get whatever you have because they want to support you. They want to make sure you're going to make more stories that they love, and that you're able to do that till the end of time.
And what I love about the whole process, and Pete, this goes into what you're saying, is like, you know, you get the support, you get the stuff, but you know what's great? Your idea is your idea, and your idea is your idea. And your stylization is yours. No one's telling you, hey, you know what, draw a little more like this, or you know what, write a little more like this. You are able to make 100% yourself, your product on paper out to the world. So the stylization in the crowdfunding realm it's a phenomenal thing that's out there.
You may
the
say it's
writing,
diverse.
Yeah, and speaking of diverse, though, you can have like what you do is that you alternate your titles.
Yeah.
So he's having multiple IPs, you know, multiple different products. So
Yeah.
right, so your one campaign will
Yeah, I
be
do
naughty
about,
nice.
so I do about 4 crowdfunds a year, and it's usually different books. The one thing I will say, the number one thing is delivering your product, and I believe you under promise and over deliver. You tell people the book is being, let's say, shipped in October, don't ship it in November. If anything, ship it in, you know, September. And that's the way we approach it, because there's nothing worse than, and it's bad for everybody involved. When you don't deliver the product, that turns people off. Because they go, yeah, I supported this book, and the guy said I was gonna have it in 3 months, but it's 6 months, I still don't have it. I'm kinda interested, but in, you know, supporting this guy, like say Peter has a new book. I kinda want it, but you know, Bob didn't deliver his book, and if I give Peter my money, is he not gonna deliver my book? And maybe Peter has a fantastic record of always delivering, but once you have that bad taste, you know, it's like you walk into a restaurant, you have a bad meal, you don't wanna come back to that place. So that's the whole thing. Whatever it is, if it's gonna take you 6 months, tell people, like, look, it's gonna take 6 months. Don't tell them it's gonna take 3 months when you know it's gonna be 6 months. So always deliver the product in a timely manner. And if you can do it early, I did that because we had a campaign end, and a month later, or not even a month later, like 3 weeks later, I started another one. Well, the reason I was able to do it was because I had delivered the product early. And when my campaign was hitting, people were getting their books a month ahead of schedule. So they're like, not only is Murad delivering, he's giving it to me early. So the fact that I just supported him on this project, well, I don't mind supporting him on this one because I know I'm getting my product, because here it is. It just arrived in the mail, and 3 days later he has a new one.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing.
And that's how they know, because then you could, like what Brian Polito does, and that Brian is now such a bona fide publisher again, that he'll start another campaign while he's fulfilling the other. So some people get hey, here's all the books, but you're out with, especially social media, right? It's so easy to reach out to your supporters, your friends, your family, and like, listen, the book is at the printer right now, and then you can launch the next one. You know, once you get to that, it's going to be tough to do it right off the bat. But if, like Marat says, if you get that first book out early, and like I said, say it's a few people will wait for you. If you say it's going to take 5-6 months to get the book, they will.
Your reputation's everything. Once you deliver 1 or 2 or 3, and people go like, I can trust this guy. And then if something happens, and things happen, you know, you get ill, or something happens, your inker quit, or your colorist, you know, is not delivering, whatever it is. You know, once you have a reputation of delivering, if something happens, people go, if this guy says, you know, his colorist quit on him, or he's been sick and down for a couple of months, I know he's not just taking my money. This guy's really legitimately having some issues delivering this product, but I'm going to get it eventually. But you have to establish that connection with your base and people that support you. So
you have to keep them updated. And that's great. Always update them. Even throw an update out there, even if everything's going smooth. Just remind them everything's going smooth. And you know, another thing I'd really love to get into, because I've got, you know, the reason why I have Marat on here and I have Peter on here falls into my next topic of, well, there's 2 platforms. There's IndieGoGo and there's Kickstarter. And you know, just like a Marvel fan loves their Marvel books, a DC fan loves their DC books, a Chevy guy, Ford guy, you name it, you've got the same thing in the crowdfunding world. Gentlemen, your take, I'll start with Peter. Your take on Kickstarter versus IndieGoGo, which do you prefer and why?
I used both really early on, and I liked Kickstarter more than IndieGoGo. But I think because of the competition, IndieGoGo started upping their game with delivering on the interface and different features and things like that. And at this point, IndieGoGo is just so much better. You get to design your page more than you could really on Kickstarter, because you can put images for the rewards associated with your rewards. You can also do things like add-ons now, where someone's checking out, you don't have to, because the biggest pain on Kickstarter is you have to modify your pledge if you want to start adding things on. So then you have to start putting math into the equation and getting messages back and forth and making sure a confirmation is there and that you have enough of this and enough of that and this person understands, and then you write it all down somewhere else. But IndieGoGo keeps it nice and clean and simple, and you can just re-pledge, you can do an add-on. It's so it's so much easier than what Kickstarter is doing. I know some people, obviously, they want to use one over the other just because of 100 other reasons, but I've found that IndieGoGo just, it's more intuitive, I think, as a project creator, and then it frees up my time also to be able to focus on promoting the project as opposed to constantly fielding questions because the interface is failing people.
You know, I feel that we did both. We did our Kickstarter first, as I said, and then we followed up with an IndieGoGo, and we made more money on our IndieGoGo in the 2 weeks than we did in our Kickstarter for the first 4 weeks. And a lot of those big pledges were gone, like maybe you become a character or you get drawn into the book, because I think the IndieGoGo community is a lot smaller, but they're a lot more engaged with one another. The fans who buy an IndieGoGo know all the other books. And it's really cool. Kickstarter is really big and really all over the place. IndieGoGo's smaller, but it seems the same fans love to support. They're really motivated to support indie creators and all. And we had more pledges in the 2 weeks from IndieGoGo than we had from the month before, the previous month before in the Kickstarter one. And that blew me away because we thought it was just a supplement. You know, we need to raise $5,000 or whatever, and man, forget it. And I was on Ethan's show, and we raised 15 in 2 hours or something. But a book that was already funded through Kickstarter, you know, and the IndieGoGo fans. But then again, there are some guys, like you said, some guys are gals, some guys are Ford guys, you know, and some guys are Chevy guys. You know, I'm a Mac guy. I've been a Mac guy since my first, you know, 6100 I had in 1994, and I'm a Mac guy. And that's why some people are just Kickstarter, and some people are just IndieGoGo. But you know, everybody deserves a little Murad Michaels. So
yeah,
you know,
I'm actually going to try it after talking to you. I'm going to try an IndieGoGo campaign and see how that works. I mean, I know there's definitely certain demographics that prefer Kickstarter and certain kind of product that Kickstarter really caters to, or Kickstarter fans really are geared towards, and then different kind of product for IndieGoGo people. But it's definitely a great way. I mean, the whole thing is reaching fans and letting them know your product exists. And if people aren't logging into Kickstarter because they're IndieGoGo people, then, you know, why not go to IndieGoGo, or vice versa? If they're IndieGoGo, you know, your first campaign is IndieGoGo and it's a successful one, but there's all these Kickstarter people that doesn't know it exists, then you go there, you know. And that's what I was talking about, just social media. That's just another avenue, you know. Even if people don't support it, even if they go, oh, this guy, you know, once you kind of get out of the mainstream of Marvel and DC, people kind of think you don't exist anymore. You don't produce work unless you're like uber successful. I get that all the time from people. You know, I'll see them at a convention. Oh man, you're still around? Like, yeah, and I'm doing quite well.
Even better.
No, it actually is.
Everything okay?
Yeah, exactly. You know, but like once they realize you exist again, you know, they go like, oh, I love your work, or I want to support. What are you doing now? And you know, and so if you can make, you know, to me, every fan is important. So if you can go over and cross the road and make even 10 new people, you know, either remember your work or know that it's out there again, or discover it for the first time, great, that's 10 more fans that are gonna follow my stuff. And, you know, to me, it's like, if you don't buy, that's great. You know, your kind word is nice. You know, the best thing too is if you're running a campaign, ask people to share. Like Polito, who's uber successful, is a buddy, both of ours, and kind of like a, you know, I tell him all the time, he's like my sensei because when it comes to crowdfunding, because he's so good with it.
Yeah. I'm the kid brother he never wanted.
Yeah.
That's what I call. That's what I say.
And I'm like the bastard kid that never wanted. But you know, we always talk about, like, you gotta appreciate your fans first and foremost, and not appreciate them only for the fact that they support you financially. Just appreciate that they appreciate your work and what you put out there. You know,
because not everybody can afford to do it, right?
And so think about the value you're giving them.
Yeah. And so the best way, you guys, even if it's not financially, is like share it. You know, just put the link up. Say, hey, you know, if you guys are fans of, you know, Peter's stuff, Turner books, or Billy's, you know, books, or mine, or anybody else's, like, hey, check this out. And look, you know, 30 people might look at it and go, it's not my cup of tea. But that one guy that goes, you know what, I'll pledge $5, or, you know, that guy falls in love with it. Hey, I'll pledge for this big $200 package. Like, every bit helps. You know, And if those guys share, so it's kind of like almost like a pyramid scheme in some ways. It's like every person that shares just branches out to more and more people.
Yeah, because even like EVS has with Comic Artist Pro Secrets, I think he had 8,000 or 9,000 backers, which is insane. But he's got 120,000 followers on his YouTube channel. So not everyone, maybe not everybody wants to buy books, but at least they might be like, hey, can you share this? And like I said, of those 120,000 people that watch his show, hey, can you share my new book, Cyber Fraud, or Rainbow Brood or something? And they'll share it. And then someone might see it like, oh, okay, that's a comic, like Brian too. Brian's got a huge following on social media, but maybe if he has 3,000 backers from Lady Dad, but if he's got 5,000 followers on Twitter, so not all those people buy it, but at least use those people, use your friends, ask them to share. If they can't pledge, because you can't pledge everything, and it does get expensive. Not everybody can afford $5 a week to give somebody for a new book here or there. But if you could just share it, that's nothing. It just, hey, can you mind sharing it?
It helps the whole cause. And we have a couple minutes left, so I do want to open up the floor to any questions on anything that we've talked about. So if anyone has any questions, please fire away at our panel here.
But you don't want to forget the fulfillment agents as well, because trying to fulfill your own can sometimes be even a bigger money waste than a headache.
Yes, that's something like add shipping costs.
Yeah.
Unless you can add that into your we didn't do that, which we learned.
Yeah.
We didn't. We had a 72-page book too.
Well, you didn't build it into.
Nah,
that.
we didn't know, and everyone and then even like Ethan said, oh, put on a little thing on the IndieGoGo, like a little tip jar that they have. So people they felt bad, like, oh, you guys didn't do shipping. All right, well, here's $2 for ship, because that's a big cost of the shipping, which we don't. If you raise $100,000, like Brian's raising $300,000, he's not keeping all that.
No.
Shipping is huge because you got to buy those nice boxes that we buy that pack the books. And the postage and the bubble wrap, and then the bag. We have your bag and board everything, and you got to put that cost in. So I'm not the person to talk to these guys about shipping, because I'm going to be asking them about it this weekend too. But then the people don't mind, right? Oh, shipping, it's $10 for shipping, and they'll do it. We didn't know that, again, but we got killed on that.
In doing our show, that's the #1 mistake every creator said, is I didn't look into the shipping. So if you're planning on starting your crowdfunding campaign, please do so. And first and foremost, check your shipping.
Yeah.
I like to build shipping into the reward, especially IndieGoGo, where you can kind of just combine. This way, someone's not paying double shipping every single time. But about fulfillment, it's funny you should say that, because last year we did something called Alternoween, which is basically making sure that our comics could be used as trick-or-treats for Halloween. And so it was all about making sure everybody had them in time for Halloween. And the comics are sold at a big discount. This year we're doing Alternoween too. It's up and running right now, actually, on IndieGoGo. But I had launched it because there was a massive amount I don't know if anybody in here knows me or anything I've been through in the past year. I don't want to get too much into it. But I went through a lot of stuff in August and September, and I wanted to launch Alternoween at the time that stuff was going on. So it got pushed back a little bit to mid-September, and we did a short 2-3 week campaign around there. And it's October 1st. Campaign ends, and I'm like, all these books have to go out. There's 15,000 comics have to go out to make sure that they got to people in time for Halloween. So I was doing like 14 to 16 hours a day, packing up boxes after box after box after box. And maybe about 20 of them I knew it wasn't going to hit at a certain point in time, so I paid for extra expedited shipping on that. But it meant a lot to me that these people got their books in time, and they need them for this specific day, and I said it would get there. So, an extra $10 per box or whatever it was to make sure that they got it in time was well worth it. But that's the kind of thing that you have to do. You have to go above and beyond. You have to make sure that you're doing right by the people who support you. Otherwise, once you start to erode that trust and that confidence from your customers and readers, it's a really hard road to climb back up, and sometimes it's impossible. So I always try to make sure that we give a good value to all our customers, all our readers, that they get the books, and that especially that's the reason we make them so affordable. This way someone goes, you know what, it might not have been my kind of book, but I liked it. I wasn't ripped off. It wasn't bad. You know, and we have tons of people that read the books and they go, I just tried this one because it was, you know, $1.50. It looked interesting, and I think I love it, and I love it.
It's a candy bar.
You know,
It's a candy bar.
All right, guys. So we are
You're gonna
now
start buying more.
we're out of time now.
Does any last questions?
Does anyone have any other questions?
Yes.
Whether you do Kickstarter or IndieGoGo, I mean, you have you have your goal for this is what we're trying to raise, and then you have your donation tiers, like this much gets you this much gets you this. In like structuring that, like how do you decide like how to set the price for what, and like what sort of things you offer at different price at different like contribution levels? Like how do you decide what gets put where?
I think you should research look at other campaigns. Like I said, look at EVS's campaign for Cyberfrog. Look at Doug Tenaples for Earthworm Jim. Look at Peter's campaign. He's got a really simple line by. Look at Marat's, campaign, and then you determine how much these things cost. Really, that's what it is. How limited it is. Because say you do a limited edition book, there's only 200 copies of it. Well, that's going to cost you more to print that book, because the printers don't like doing smaller. They like doing like with Peter. We could piggyback onto Peter with a book, but it's got to be the same paperweight. It's got to be the same. You know what I mean? To do premium. So the more premium books, the different stock you use, and there's a lot of great printers. I mean, look at him. He's using a great printer. We use Artist Express for a lot of our high-end books. They're out in Arizona.
Yep.
Anthony Delaney, and he's amazing with all the different books. We did one with. It's called a pearlized linen. It's got metal in the, in the real nice. It's not cheap though. The cover was really expensive, and then we did the metal cover, or an actual metal cover, and that's really expensive. But if you make 20 of them, you know what I mean. It's something really cool and really rare. I kind of did it because I wanted those.
And that goes back to know your market, know who you're selling to. And also, there's a big difference between IndieGoGo and Kickstarter. Is IndieGoGo, you make what you make. Kickstarter, when you set your goal, that's super important. Because the first one I did, I set my goal high, and I didn't read the fine print. And then one day, people are like, "Hey, I don't think you're going to hit your goal. You're not going to get anything." And I was like, "Well, what are you talking about? I'm 80% of my goal. I'll get 80% of what I wanted." And they were like, "No, you don't get to your full amount. You're not getting a penny." So then I called up family, friends, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, better pledge $1,000 on my Kickstarter. I'll give it to you in cash." Because I was like, "I'll take 80% over no percent." So that's the thing too. You got to read all the fine print, and that goes to shipping costs and all the other expenses. Get all that stuff figured out. Don't just go, "Well, if I have $3,000 off this campaign, that'll pay for everything." But you don't know that, because like when you're doing your pledges, you're like, "Oh, I like metal covers. I'm going to offer a metal cover for."
But no, you're not right. No,
$10. Well, it costs more than $10 to make. So that's a loss later. You can't play around like that. It's a business. Like you have to approach it. The creative part is the awesome part. That's the exciting part. But you have to be a businessman when you're setting up your campaigns. Yeah. And that's like, if you're creative, that's the hard part. Switching from one to the other. And some people are just incapable of doing it. Yeah. And
I am. That's why my wife.
Well, you surround yourself.
I am
myself with the right people. Yeah.
And I'm like, we could do this, we could do that. But that's another thing that Marat, I think we all forgot. Kickstarter is all or nothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you make a
IndieGoGo too now.
We have the option.
You can do flexible and you can do fixed
Oh,
funding,
okay.
which I like now. Early on, they did not have it that way, which you can get yourself in a bit of a pickle.
Yeah.
But even like Polito, I mean, his goal is not high. What was his
15
goal?
grand.
15,000. He knew he was going to make that in like the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But you don't set it like at a ridiculous. He wasn't going to set it at 100,000.
Yeah.
He's like, and that's another thing too. It's a really weird thing. The faster you hit your goal, the more people want to support your product. Because they go, "Oh, now don't put it like $20 and go, we made our goal, in 2 minutes." But like my last Kickstarter, and the one going now, we hit 5,000 in like 48 seconds. And it was a couple of really big pledges because we had some really big tiers. But man, that really kind of sparked everything. And people are like, "Well, I don't know exactly if this is my cup of tea, but I want to be part of this." Because it's kind of like anything else. You get behind something because the crowd is getting, and that's the whole point. It's crowdfunding. It's not 20 people funding, because that's the whole thing. Be realistic, but also make sure you can get there as fast as possible, because it does. You catch a buzz, and buzz is everything. People want to be part of something new, something exciting, something when go back to Image Comics, you know, it blew up because everybody was like, this is my chance. Especially we had a lot of young kids who were comic fans at the time. You know, they felt like that was their chance. They can't get an Amazing Fantasy #1, but they can get a Spawn #1. You know, they can't get a Batman #1, but they can get a Wildcats or a Youngblood or whatever the book was that they got behind. They thought they were going to get first appearances and be part of the new kind of golden age of comics. And that's the whole thing with, you know, crowdfunding. And, you know, it's like, you never know, you know, one of his books might be, you know, 5 years from now, a huge hit movie, and you're going to want that, you know, #1. And you also like to say, like, I was there. I was, you know, I was part of it in the beginning. Before it became hot, you know, I was reading, you know, Thanos Quest before Thanos was a thing. Like, everybody wants to say they were there before everybody, you know. Deadpool fans, you know, there's post-video game movie Deadpool fans who've never read the book, and they're just like, people, I bought New Mutants '98, and that's like their badge of honor. Like, that was, I was there from the get-go. And that's kind of what you want your fans, you know, people that support you to be part of. You want them to be part of your success.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for time. You're out of
Thank
time. If you have any questions, you want to, you know, that you
Well,
still
tell
want
me
to
where you are, Marat.
C21 and C22.
They got a C58 and 59 at the end, and Peter again.
704 and 706.
So
if you guys have any
we'll answer your
questions,
questions if you have any. Thank you
stop
all
by
for
the
coming.
booth.
We're all kind of new at this, like the whole crowdfunding thing, but thank you all for coming. This was great.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
subscribe
guys.
to our Crowdfunding Comics on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, Peter, you have your YouTube channel. What is it?
Alternate Comics. That's it.
Alterna Comics. We have ours, which is Crowdfunding Comics.
And I'm going to make one eventually.
Yeah, I have a Billy Tucci. Thanks, guys.
Lots of new posts.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning into Crowdfunding Comics. We look forward to hanging out with all of our crowdfunding fans every time we go live. And don't forget to click the link below and subscribe to our channel. And there's a little bell, you may want to hit that too. This way you get all the great notifications when we go live and when we upload some awesome content. You want to follow us? Sure, go right ahead at Twitter at CrowdFundComics with an X, Instagram, Crowdfunding Comics, and Facebook at Crowdfunding Comics. Till next time, crowdfunding fans, we'll see you soon.